Ready? Right, I'm Phil. I'm going to talk to you about the standards of what you get on wireless, the data rates you get, and the distances around it, and how it affects the performance of wireless. So going into it, the first one, which is now legacy, came out in 1997, and it operates around the 2.4, if it works, gigahertz band, offers pool range of only around 15 metres indoors and 75 metres outdoors. It uses a frequency hopping spread system, like what Dan said earlier, which basically means it goes from all across the channel from 2.4 to 2.435 gigahertz, and it just finds the best one where there's less interference and then operates around there. It's operational in many warehouses and factories, stuff where there's a lot of high interference. In particular is I work at Asda, and it's currently operational in there, with obviously a lot of walling, metal concrete doors, stuff like that. It's got to operate around it. Often not used anymore at all. The low data rates of 2 megabits isn't actually true. You get more of below 1 megabit due to collision sense multiple access, which basically means it's a bit like the wireless collision detection, but the avoidance of it has to detect a collision before it's actually taking place. So that means it actually takes a lot of the data and redundancy of the transfer speeds there, trying to detect the collision before it happens. So that's why the data rates are so low. This is the same for all standards that you get. Moving on, the B standard in 1999 was created, superseded the legacy band of the first one. Operational standards of 11 megabits, but again, with the collision sense, you're only realistically going to get 5.5 maximum. Probably lower, obviously, the further distance you go out. It's got good range. Indoors, you're looking about 30 metres, and outdoors, maybe about 90. Depending, obviously, on if you've got an old building, propagation in it's going to be a lot lower. You're probably going to get maybe 10 metres max. It uses a different type of modulation, which again, what Dan referred to, but this is direct sequence spread system. That only operates at the low data rates of 1 and 2 megabits, but to get the higher megabits of 11.5, the complementary key code is actually used, which uses 5.5 megabits and 11 megabits transfer. It's also the same backward compatibility, interoperable with the G band, where that operates at 54 megabits per second, but you're probably only likely to get around 20, again, due to all of the same things. This, however, uses a different frequency of OFDM, where if you draw on the board of it, it operates where that was 1 and 2, and that was 5.5 and 11. This uses different data rates of on a little. And finally 54. It'll go through all them data rates. Each time, the further away you're getting, it'll fall back to each data rate, go on gradually further with distance. Once it hits to the end of the 6, it finally falls back to the direct sequence and the C complementary key one, where it'll go 11, 5.5, and then eventually 1 and 2. And obviously, once you hit past 1, you'll probably lose connection, be useless. Again, these all operate in the 2.4 gigahertz band. And true with it is there's a lot of interference with them. Baby monitors, cordless phones, Bluetooth, other wireless access points, microwave ovens, all affect it, which obviously again affects the distance and data rates. If you're running a microwave and you're on the higher channels of like 9 to 11, probably cut off completely if you're quite a distance away from your access point. So it's a major issue to consider. It's often operational in businesses and homes, which is due to the low cost. I mean, like Dan said, 40 quid for something that can fill out your home, compared to wiring your house where it's going to be a couple of grand. It is. Moving on to the A band. This is sort of the equivalent of the G, if you like, but this operates at 5 gigahertz. Again, around the same speeds, probably a bit quicker than G by a couple of megabits, 1 or 2 megabits, when you take the collision sense into range. The range of it's actually good, but it's not as good as the B and G. It's about 5 or 10 meters, give or take, for the indoor and outdoor range. so I'll only maybe go 25 metres indoors and then maybe 85, 80 outdoors. Again, it uses the same modulation as this, where what happens is it splits up the signal into separate carrier centres, and then it sees which one's got the least interference on it, and then that one will have priority to send. So that's how this works. Of course, with it being in the 5 GHz, you don't have as much interference with the Sims to 2.4 with baby monitors Bluetooth. It's pretty much free, but it's not backward compatible with anything. So you basically have air, and that is it, nothing else. I actually did a survey around the state to see actually how many wireless access points were found for air, and not one were found, when there was 56 found for B&G. So obviously you're going to get better reception with it, but it comes at a cost more. You can't actually run air on these access points, so you'll have to pay more money for them. And the wireless cards that are supported are generally more expensive for an air card. Some of them come built in, like the Intel cards, but generally they're quite more expensive to buy, which is mainly probably why it's done mainly in businesses and not in few homes. And the signals also propagate a lot worse through walling and stuff like that compared to the B&G band, so it actually can't go as far. Here's what you'd expect, like if you drew a house plan of what you'd probably expect if you whacked an access point right in the middle there for it to propagate out all evenly. But actually it doesn't work like that, and there you'd have your high speeds of 54, and obviously working your way down where you'd have maybe 1-2 megabits on there further on the outside. This is actually a real instance of a floor plan taken in my house, where there's the strongest signal, the darker colours, and it's obviously working its way outwards. Where you can see the green is the signal's actually dropping. This is actually due to obstacles in your home, like I could say I've got a wall and cabinet there, or different type of door in, showers, stuff like that, anything that can affect it. So that's how data rates are gone. In the far corner there, reception's actually quite poor, goes on and off, but that's my brother's room, so unlucky. Here's what we were talking about before, where signal can be affected. I mean, obviously these numbers up here, they were taken off the internet. How true they are, who knows? But it's just a rough idea of what you're going to get. So if you're going to have something like a metal door, it's going to seriously affect your reception, so you might have to consider where you place an access points, which is a vital point. Obviously plasterboard, walling with most modern houses barely affects it at all, so you're going to get good reception throughout the home. Here's a channel assignment for the B&G. The A channel is slightly different, that uses 12 channels, and they're all non-lapping, where the BG band all overlap. As you can see here, this is how you should effectively lay out your channel assignments if you're, say, in a business, where your channels are completely non-overlapping, so you're going to get the best reception throughout all, where 6s are never connected to each other, and neither any of the rest. However, this isn't as easy as doing this in a home, because obviously you've got your neighbours to consider, which you can't obviously change their channel unless you're a bit naughty. So you have to try and work your way best around it. If you say I had a channel down here, channel 2 channel, and your neighbour was on maybe a channel 8, it'd actually work with the least reception to try and update your data rates. But again, it's very hard to do it. There's only actually, is it 13 I think you're allowed in England? And these are the 3, yeah, and 14 used for research. And these are the 3 that you mainly want to target, like I said, complete non-overlapping, so you're going to get the best reception you can possibly get. Just a summary of it, B&G is the most used standard around, although from what Mick's going to tell you, it'll probably soon be disappeared. The A band, it's good for reception and speed, but it's very expensive and hard to get hold of cards, and it's just not as user friendly as everything else. The collision sense, multiple access, collision avoidance really affects data rates. As you can see in the columns down here, you've actually got your throughput rates and what the product actually says you get, which is pretty much a lie, putting it easy. And like I said, obstacles affect walling. Down here we have the 802.11 standard, which Mick's going to talk to you about, which is MIMO, after Nick's finished his security about Wi-Fi. Thank you so much.